Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Teamwork does make the dream work, and that's especially true in documentary cinema, where you basically have to be everywhere at once. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are listening, then subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, Letterboxd, the TikTok, the Threads, and probably several other places at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for our latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness. Come on by and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a fun one. We're back in the world of Apple TV Plus. Hard to believe, but yes, we are. We took a deep dive into Girl State, which is a fantastic documentary from the team of Amanda McBaine and Jesse Moss, which basically follows 500 adolescent girls from all across Missouri as they come together for a week-long immersion in a sophisticated Democratic laboratory, where they organize the Supreme Court to consider the most contentious issues of the day. It's a good film. It's really a good film. It's very much a partner piece to Boys State, which shocker, is also available on Apple TV Plus. Go check that out. But it's good stuff, and it's a good film that I cannot recommend highly enough. Please check that out. But like I said, in these films, it takes a village, and it takes a mass of people to get this stuff done. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with some of the cinematography team, who basically has to go shoot, and do interviews and all that sort of fun stuff. The one only Thorsten Thielow and Laura Hudock. And we asked about their experiences on the shoot and just sort of the nature of the job and the challenges therein. It was a great talk, but you should check out the movie. And also, you should check out Apple TV Plus, because it's good. It really is. Go sign up now and go watch Girl State. But first, enjoy our talk with Thorsten and Laura, because between you and me, it is a pretty darn good one. It's the obvious question, but I mean, I guess I'm kind of curious. Like, how do you get brought into a project like this? Like, are you there from early on, or is it a question of, hey, we're going to go this? I need some DOPs, someone to go shoot. Like, where does sort of the ball start rolling?
Who's supposed to say?
Well, I had a relationship with Jesse and Amanda, having shot some previous films and worked on previous films, and Laura has worked. We have worked in the same circles over the years, and she has always been somebody that is like highly recommended, has done incredible work, and so she was a no-brainer to bring onto the project, and I recommended her to Jesse and Amanda, and they talked, and then she came on, and we're so glad she did, because she shot a big part of the movie really beautifully.
Now, I mean, I'm curious. Obviously, you're doing interviews.
I thought it was Matthew that recommended me.
Oh,
well, Matthew recommended me to you, Matthew, but other people too have recommended your name has been in the circles for so
Okay.
long.
Okay, good. I should be getting more calls then. What is that? Yeah, I thought Matt Heineman had recommended me to Jesse, and then because that's what he said on the call. And then I interviewed with Jesse, and Tor was already on the call because you had already shot Boys State, and where I had already started with that. I mean, that was I have no idea how from your side. That's what I thought happened.
But I mean,
Yeah.
there is a bit of a through line here from Boys, Not a Girl State. And I mean, I'm curious, because especially on something like this, part of you has to want to stay out of the way, but also part of you is engaging with the subjects and doing interviews and doing all that kind of stuff. I can imagine it's a bit of a delicate balance in the moment to I mean, I'm always fascinated by sort of the people who can sort of engage with the subject in a documentary, but at the same time stay away from it and sort of be the fly on the wall. And I mean, I think this film kind of achieves both.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, well, I feel like so much of it is energetically connecting with the subject. And also when you put the camera down, you're connecting with the subject. But at the same time, the fly in the wall is like allowing them to thrive and fumble and, you know, live their life in front of you. But in order for them to do that, like you need to build up a connection and a trust, so that they feel comfortable, like it's no big deal. I got this camera on my shoulder and we're just hanging out, you know. So that kind of feeling, rather than them like being controlled or intimidated or not fully allowing themselves to unravel and express. So it is a fine balance of like connection and in the moments where you're filming, sort of stay connected through the camera, but allowing the scene to unfold.
Hmm. No, for sure. Now, I mean, obviously, going into this, I'm curious. Do you get a sense of narrative of where the story the directors want the story to go, or is it more a question of just shoot, 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 and then it gets discovered later?
That's a really good question. This particular event and shoot is different from, I would say, most documentaries because it's condensed in so little, and essentially the 7 people that worked on it shooting with the sound person attached and a few producers in the mix, you get sort of they all acted. All of those shooters or camera people, cinematographers acted and worked and come from a background of also directing,
Mm.
because there was no way for the directors to be everywhere at the same time. So there was communication with the directors, but often just not enough to, you know, download every detail. So yes, you do get a sense in my mind of your character storyline, where they're going, what's going on in their mind. The deeper you go in and the more you hang out with them, you see what are they struggling with, how are they connecting with other kids, what's the overall program, where is it going, where are they, you know, amongst their peers and all that. So you get sort of a micro idea of where your character is, and then a bigger idea of what the program is doing and how that influences the program and what the girls talk about. But it was entirely impossible for all of us to have an idea how this film will look like. And there were like in the material, the like nearly 1,000 terabyte of footage shot. Amanda, along with her editor, spent, I don't know, I think it was like 6 or 7 months, it might have been more, every day screening every single frame and assembling this together. And they, by the end of it, still had no idea. And seeing some of the cuts, there were like 5 or 6 movies in this film with characters. In the end, it became this puzzle piece almost, for the lack of a better word, in, you know, with like a couple of clicks, you could completely take out a storyline of a full character, completely out. Like somebody that a cinematographer had thought of for 7 days, and they just needed to be cut out because another story that was more interesting or more better for the film in the end. I don't know. Laura,
Yeah.
anything to add to that?
I first I'd say to like to paint the picture of like how we shot this, it was like a large team, but to make the film, but there was like 6 main characters and each individual team was small. It was just camera and sound.
Mm.
Except for interviews, a director would be there to do the interviews. But so it's really a small, intimate verite sort of situation. So the only story that I really knew about directly was my character, which was Emily Worthmore. And then basically we had this break room where I'd go back and sort of relay to Amanda and Jesse, this is where we are with Emily's, story at the moment, and sort of like update what her story arc is. And then they would give me updates on like what other stories are happening and if there's any crossover, because a lot of times there's character crossover and sort of like they'd be like, okay, we'll really, really focus on this aspect of the story, this, so a bit of a dialogue, but it's not really like it's verite. We're following the story, and we're in a way creating it by choosing what we focus on. Yeah, I guess if that paints a better picture.
No, I mean, Laura, I'm curious on something from your perspective because I mean, going through your list of credits, like you've done a lot of documentary work, but I mean, you've worked on shows, you've worked on other stuff, and done camera work there. Like, how does the job vary? Because I mean, it always feels to me that, especially when it comes down to documentary and kind of the documentary form, you kind of have to have a little bit of faith because it's not a question of where it's going. You sort of have to sort of embrace the chaos of the process, as it were, as opposed to maybe something that was a scripted show.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many things that are so different from working on a narrative versus documentary, and also a lot of crossover. But in terms of what you're talking about specifically, in terms of embracing the chaos, and I think, yeah, I mean, it's so much is just this ability to be super present in the moment, be open, be connected to the human and the humans in front of you and what they're going through, and also sort of like very much it's less about planning. I can't literally plan the lighting plan or plan the shot plan you're editing in your head as you go. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this wide to tell the scene, and then I'm going to move in, and then like I see the detail of her hands like nervously tapping, and then I'm going to and then you sort of like think on the fly, like, what are all the shots I need to put this scene together? So yeah, you've got to figure it out in the moment. So sometimes the lighting's not the best. Sometimes you can open a curtain or close a curtain or get around on another side, but like sometimes you just got to deal with what you got, which can be frustrating. Window blowing out and you're like, oh, but if you try and do something about it, you're going to lose the moment. So the moment becomes more important sometimes than the light. It's balance. But I mean, I could talk for hours about the difference between narrative and scripted. I don't know. There's so many ways to approach it. I don't know if you have any other specific question about
Well, I mean, I even think of something that Thorsten worked on because I'm always kind of fascinated about the relationship between the director and the DOP, the shooter, because I mean, I think of something, Thorsten, that you worked on, like American Symphony with Matthew, who has this sort of really extensive track record of being this war documentarian and ends up making this very sort of tender, gentle love story, which was a fantastic piece of work. How does the dynamic between the director and the DOP sort of influence the job as a whole?
Oh, it's trust. It's trust, and it's many years of working together with Matthew in this case, and the same applies to a lot of people, Laura and I both. There's a really interesting dynamic that happens in documentary filmmaking. That is, if you go in as one person and you embed yourself with a group of people or with just one person, you sort of become part of them.
Right.
There is then less. They start caring for you. They think about you in a different way. They think about you as you're becoming part of the group, whatever that means, ethically in terms of how that influences the moment. That's a different conversation, but that's the reality. Versus when you walk in with a producer and a director and a sound person, it's like them, the filmmakers, and us. It's entirely different dynamic. So the material, the trust and the intimacy you create is entirely different. And with Matthew, he often works, and Laura has worked for Matthew as well, including on American Symphony, in a similar fashion, is that Matthew very often he shoots himself. Sometimes he's a talented cinematographer himself, and he goes in alone too. So there's a lot of American Symphony where I'm entirely alone with Suleika or John, and that builds a relationship, and it builds a relationship fast. It's like a photojournalist that does a very similar thing. They go into a moment and they build trust with people fast, and then so much trust that, especially when it gets hairy, especially when there's conflict, when most people would say, please turn it off. That's when it really becomes so important that you have that kind of trust. Not only personal trust, but also trust that whatever that material, where's that going, what's going to happen with that film, how are you going to paint a picture of this moment? Do I trust you with that? And uh, and so yeah, that's often the work is with Matthew. He sent me in, and I spent 16-hour days with John from the morning to the end. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't know if
No,
Laura
it
has.
does. It does. But I mean, I guess just to put a bow on this, I mean, at the end of the day, with stuff like, Girl State, Boy State, American Symphony, is the creative payoff for both of you sort of having those moments of trust where you know that if I didn't have the trust between the person between me and the person I'm shooting, I wouldn't have been able to get that moment?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely. I mean, it's you're looking for truthful moments. You're looking for something that can be revealed that otherwise wouldn't be if there's a camera there. And if you don't have that connection, if you don't have that wall down, it's you're just not going to get it. I mean, it's just that simple. It's probably the most important part of documentary cinematography is that trust and that connection to get those moments.
Yeah, because I mean, documentary cinematography, it almost feels like it's your job to not be noticed. I mean, if you're a cinematographer on a Christopher Nolan movie and you're shooting in IMAX and people aren't noticing you, you're not doing your job. But on a documentary, if people aren't noticing you and they're just noticing the moment, then you are doing your job.
Well, I think they say for cinematography across the board, you shouldn't be noticed. It should be more of a subconscious
Fair. That's fair.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you sort of feel like it's a camera's not there. Although sometimes, not all, I mean, there's moments that are specifically, you know, from a point of view that work as well.
Okay.
But yeah, what do you think, Tor?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I agree with you, and I would say it in even a slightly more like provocative way is that whole notion is such bullshit. I mean, it's like bonkers, and I don't know where it came from. I'm actually super interested in figuring out,
Which notion? Oh,
like, fly on the wall.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that teaching is something
yeah,
that, like, I'm so curious to find out which professor at what film school came up with that term first,
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
absolutely, it's not fly on the wall. It's becoming part of the family. It's becoming part of
yeah,
what's happening. You
yeah.
build a relationship. There
Mm.
is a very fine line to walk when to put the camera down and have a conversation when it's important, even at the expense of missing a moment. There is that, it's trust. It's like, it's very, very sensitive and fragile framework in which we navigate those moments. And clearly Laura has done a masterful work with that in connecting with her character on Girl State, because she captured moments that were incredibly personal, with tears, and she didn't have 2 or 3 shoots leading up to this, or
Yeah.
just hanging out. Like, she went in full force. She had 5 minutes to gain that trust, and then she had very little moments to put the camera down and connect and sympathize and be there. And she did that, because she's a really fantastic person, and nice and kind and warm, but also because she's been trained to do that. She's been doing that her whole life. That's the difference.
Well, and I mean, I definitely agree with you on that. And I mean, I think probably verite is probably a better way to sort of describe it because, I mean, again, it's what you guys have done, especially with Girl State. I mean, it tears down the artifice of the camera and it allows us to get these very human moments. And I mean, I think you both done some great work here. And I just want to say again, congrats on the work, and thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for talking with us.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.